Hi there. Welcome to RCR's In the Room with, our new video series talking to entertainment professionals about their careers and what they've learned along the way. I'm Stephanie Pichet, editor and publisher of RCR News Media. Today we're speaking with bi-coastal actor, producer, and writer Frank Krueger. Thanks for joining us, Frank. We're excited to hear from your experiences about getting in the room
Thanks,
and what
Stephanie.
to do.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Great to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Welcome. So let's start out with, can you just kind of give us a background of what inspired you to even start being an actor in this crazy industry, and what inspires you today to keep going?
Oh, it's a great question. I mean, it's a long story because I've been doing it a long time. I think like so many people, I got hooked on the acting part in like High School Musical. I mean, when I was in a High School Musical, so doing this
Mhm.
stuff, and that's where my friends were, and then I fought it all the way through college. I was going to do graphic design, and I was like, the idea of being an actor wasn't there. And then I realized I didn't like that. So I kept getting gravitated towards at least television and theater production, always from the acting stuff, but I would always take the safe choice,
Uh,
doing the production part, stuff that sounded like a real job, when I was 18, 19. Um, and I interned at the David Letterman show late night, which was still to this day one of my favorite experiences. I got to work with the band, and it was very exciting. And I started to feel like, oh, I could do production. It's very exciting in that capacity. Um, so fun. And but then I got jobs in other things as PAs in other shows that weren't the late show, that weren't the live show every day, and I was still taking acting classes and still getting pulled in. And this is all way back in '95 when Jerry Maguire came out, and I
mm,
saw Jerry Maguire and went and quit my production job the
wow.
following Monday. I was like, I'm just going to be an actor, and that's it. And I was in New York at the time and started doing auditions when Backstage was still a newspaper and you could just go to
Mhm,
open calls. So I went to 3 or 4 a day,
mhm.
got a couple of jobs, and then never sort of looked back from there. That was when I was like, and ironically, it comes back around where I ended up producing to get my own work out there. So
Okay.
you go back to producing, when we did
Right.
digital um, and producing films to get you know, to get projects that you want
Right.
developed, you have to self-produce sometimes, I think. And the opportunity now is so different. Well, we know that's how we met, was coming through
Right.
the first wave of digital series, YouTube when
Right.
it first came out,
Mhm.
and that all became. But what's interesting is because I did a film group that came from a theater company that we just want to teach ourselves how to do film. And this is like 2002, 2003. So we would put what we would do to our membership company, like $50 a month. And then every 2 months we'd have $2,000 when we shoot a short film.
Oh,
First
that's
couple,
cool.
we didn't know what we were doing.
Mhm.
After a year, that group produced something like 13 short films.
Wow.
And we were coming around 2005. And my first web series came from that group,
Mhm.
where we were just like, and we were doing it for film festivals and stuff and YouTube. And so we said, oh, well, why don't we just put it on this thing, YouTube? Because maybe 300 people will see it. And that's more than you'll get at like some audiences for a short film
Right.
festival back then.
Right.
And and then we just kind of like the same thing. We were like three of us, and every month we would put $300 into a pot, have like $1,000 budget, and shoot 4 episodes of like this, the silliest comedy thing ever.
Right.
But next thing you know, there's a couple thousand viewers, then a couple 20,000 viewers, then one hit and got like a couple million viewers and was on like YouTube's homepage when YouTube still had a homepage back then.
Right.
And you could send your videos to the editor
Mhm.
way back. That's how old that
Way
was.
yeah,
Can you
way
imagine
back
it?
in the
Can you
day,
imagine
I
when
know.
YouTube had it? You know,
Yep. Oh
someone you could
yeah.
email and just be like, here's my videos. And they
Right.
would put it on their homepage somewhere. Uh, so it was an exciting time. That's when we met. And I thought the
Right.
community was building and the gatekeepers were coming down. And
Hmm.
um,
More
it's,
accessibility to, different agencies, and because of what you're creating, and you're not letting that stop you from being that creative person. You're making things and putting them out there, and people are finding them.
yeah. And maybe it's from that experience, but I think that's always the way it is.
Hmm.
I think people think that you're going to hustle your way into something. But the way to hustle your way into something is by creating work. Your work
Hmm.
gets better as the time goes by. You have something to show. And it leads to the next thing that you're creating, which is the next thing, whether you're creating it with someone else or whether you're pushing it through. But you, it's no longer just a promise of like, trust me, I'm great.
Right.
It's here's what I built. And if you build it from the heart and you're building it not to just be seen, but because there's a reason for it,
Hmm.
um, then people notice it. Like,
Right.
Bernie is a great example. Bernie Sue with,
Hmm.
Lizzie Bennett Diaries
Right.
used the methods that were there and had a story and had you know, and
Hmm.
built it from what it built. And then, shoot, then it took, it wasn't him just saying, oh, hey,
Right. Exactly. No,
he
it's
made it happen. And then this is what it is. Then Time Magazine calls. Then all of these things start happening
mhm,
because people notice, whether it's Sundance Film Festival. That's
right. But you have to hone your craft, right? You
hmm
don't just, you're not just throwing stuff out there. You're actually wanting to create and get better with each time, and work with people that make you better and elevate your work. And that's part of the craft, right? Just doing that work, and being the best for that scene, giving your best, or writing the best scene, or those things, and having that collaboration with people when you're self creating,
yeah,
right?
100%. I mean, I call it like it came to me as like, what's your lighthouse? Because there's times where you get very uninspired,
Hmm.
because you're pulled in so many different directions in this business of like, so it's like, okay, well, what's the lighthouse? Why did you become, again, from Jerry Maguire? I'm going to quote this all of them, but it's like, you know, what was that thing that made you become a football player? It wasn't always about the money. It's about something else. You don't want to be a paycheck player, even though the
Right.
paycheck's nice and you want to be successful, but that's not the lighthouse. If your lighthouse is just to be famous, that's great, but there are ways to do that.
Hmm.
TikTok, that's a whole business plan just by itself.
Right.
So you have to know, what are you doing it for?
Hmm.
You know, whether are you doing it to tell a story, you're doing it to be the best actor you want to be, best uh, DP, best, if you're just interested like in building a media thing where you get news and it's not gossiping, like you
Hmm.
find your voice that way by just keeping your eye on and that way, even when you're starting the work, I think that work is better because I think people, when they do work for a different purpose, is when it turns people off
Or their heart's not into it,
because their
right?
heart's not into it. So
Right.
it's for the paycheck. It's a
Right.
paycheck player, and especially on film, I think you can just smell that.
Mhm, mhm.
And
Yeah, absolutely. If there's not that chemistry, or you think they're just phoning it in and it gets passed, that's not
or it's like
part of it.
jazz handy, like I call it jazz hands. He's like, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me.
Mhm.
Um, you of course you want people to look at your stuff. There's ways to put it out there, but that's if that's just your thing, look at me, look at me, look at me. People say no. At
Right.
least it's tough. It's
So
more like, look at this. This is what I'm trying to say. This is something I'm
right,
proud of. This is
right.
where I am at this moment, and I'm growing and I'm doing. Then people can be inspired by that because they're like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, you're telling a story about sex trafficking because it meant something to you, or you're doing um, Diary of Anne Frank because you have connection to the Holocaust thing.
Right.
Those are the things that inspire people. You can't. So I think people should find that and go
Mhm.
that way, and that'll lead to the next, which will lead to the next. And
Right,
that's
just
incredibly diverse, what
right.
that could be.
Along my career, that's been kind of the thing because I've been in positions where I've been in high tech sales back
Mhm.
in the day, and I never cared about the commission. I cared about putting the right solution in for that newspaper, that production company, so they actually, benefited from that
Right.
technology. And whereas people I worked with only cared about how much commission they were going to make. So it's kind of the same thing. Do you have a joy, and are you joyful in doing this craft, or are you just trying to find a paycheck?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, it sounds so like follow your bliss, but I don't want it to be glib like
Well,
that, because
right.
I don't think that it's just that. You have to put in the work. You have to put in the work, but then it doesn't feel like work. I could talk about shop all day long. I can be on set, on
Hmm.
rehearsal for a play for like 18 hours. Easy. It
Hmm.
wouldn't bother me a bit because it's what you want to do.
Right.
I think if you're
Right.
following it that way, you
Hmm.
become obsessive about this project. If you're not, I know it's not always easy to do, but that would be the first part of the search, is like, okay, what's the lighthouse? Where do I want to go? And then, because it's hard sometimes because you're stuck in a position where you need a paycheck, you need this,
Right.
you need that.
Well, and I've talked to a lot of actors, it's interesting, or people in the industry that have another job or they do something else in
Mhm.
addition. Because sometimes when you're self-creating, you have to, dig into your own pocket for some of that. Or be creative like you guys were doing, and everybody just pitching a few bucks a month, and you have something to use.
Right.
But I think one of the big issues today is how are people, if they want to get funded or they want to get a project made, what are some of the things that you're seeing might be a helpful tip, or a good path to follow, or
Oh,
advice?
I mean, it's hard because if you there's because that is a very business based thing. So
Mhm.
I look at it as the better you can compartmentalize that. So like, yes, there's business aspect of it and there's art aspect of it. And even
Right.
if you're the artist, you can look at the business. Doesn't totally affect. You can know, okay, this is an actor that is worth X amount of funding. This is an actor that's not, that amount of funding. Those are not, you put your list together that way, and
Right.
then you can be reasonable about, okay, I'm not going to get
But you need to
necessarily
know
Tom
what your
Cruise
budget
for
is
this, and to,
first.
yeah, and
Right.
to figure out your budget, and to
Mhm.
figure out what the market is. And there are people who pull names internationally,
Mhm.
that people might not necessarily think are big names here,
Mhm.
um, and there are people who I think, in Moneyball, in Moneyball terms, there are people who, like, distributors might not see the value, but um, have a TV show and huge Instagram followers and things like that. That
Right.
you can connect them to your project, and because what it comes down to, the money is, it's like nobody wants to risk the money when it comes with a person putting the money up. So you need to make your plan as bulletproof in those terms. Okay,
Mhm.
this is the audience that's going to watch it, and, this is where we're going to put it.
Mhm.
Are you going to put it on Amazon? Okay, well, how much does Amazon pay per
Right.
1,000 hours of viewing? How are you? Then you have to figure out, to make 100,000, you have to have like 10 million hours of view time. Okay, but how are you going to do that? I
Mhm.
mean, it becomes math at that point for
Right.
someone who's just putting
Right.
money in, or they want to be involved in the project because it's important to them too, because
Mhm.
they have extra money, and they want to get involved in something fun.
Mhm.
But then it can't just be anything. It has to be,
You
okay.
have right.
It
You
has
have
to be
to
the story. It has to be what you
right.
believe in. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll give you this, or I'll give you that, because yeah, that sounds like a fun project and I want to try something new. There are
But
people out there that
you
do that.
have to have the plan though. You have to have a
Yeah.
plan, you have to do the research, where is the audience going to be? And, as web series time, remember, I mean, we used to use social media like crazy to get people to plug in and to look, to watch what you're doing online. So, today you have to definitely put together that plan. I mean, you may be the creative, but you can find somebody to help you on,
Hmm.
the budget, and then who are you going to pitch to? What is the benefit, and how do you reduce the risk, like you were saying, for that money person to want to,
Right. I mean, it's
buy into
respectful
that?
of their risk
Right.
to do that. To do that math, it's not. uh, And a lot of times you're not. It might not be right. It's a highly speculative business at all times at a certain level, in the indie level.
Hmm.
But you can do your best
Right.
to not. And there are a lot of people, sadly, who they get the money from these kind of these investors who want to be in the business, and they I've seen it, to throw it away on giving themselves big paychecks, giving the other stuff, and it doesn't go into the project, and it doesn't,
Hmm.
and then that just, I think, ruins it for everybody.
Hmm.
Because if you have a plan, even if that plan changes, that's okay. We're still trying. You want to respect the people that are working with you. You want to respect the risk that they're doing, not just be like, oh, here's my bank, here's my
Right.
ATM, and I'm going to
Right.
do whatever I want to do.
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, I want to do whatever I want to do and protect their money and make something great that hasn't been made before, or whatever your lighthouse is. You
Right.
want to be the best, you know, genre horror producer since
Right.
Roger Corman, then do that. There's nothing wrong. Go and
Right.
be the best horror producer you can
Hmm.
possibly be.
So, how do what are some of the tips or things that you've done in the past to get you in the room with people to talk about your project and pitch it?
Well, and as an actor, the thing that helped me the most was going to casting director workshops. Now they closed those down in LA to an extent,
Hmm.
because they said it was pay for play, and that was very disappointing to me, because
Right.
those I would, you know, you would meet people that you wouldn't get a chance to meet, and you would get to
Hmm.
show them your work, and you would get to build relationships that way.
Hmm.
And so outside of an agent, they could push you into a room you're not supposed to be in the first place. That was the best way to do it. They
Hmm.
still exist now. They're just way more expensive than they used to be. And but I always find, like, casting directors, and even in these workshops, they want to meet actors. That's their whole thing. They're very friendly to actors. I mean, Jason Kennedy, that among many others, um, did open calls and watched thousands and thousands of tapes of new actors when the pandemic first hit.
Hmm.
Um, there, I think, from what I'm hearing, social media is, way more open. Like, you can listen, you can follow many, many casting directors all over
Right.
the place
Hmm.
and see what they're doing and what.
Hmm.
Um, and then I always think it's a matter of being, professional in your hustle.
Hmm. Right.
Don't get crazy. Don't be disrespectful. Follow. You know.
Right.
Um,
Have current headshots.
yeah. I mean, and that's not nothing. Have a headshot on IMDb. I know it's
Right.
$20 a month. It's a lot. It's expensive. But you
It's a
need.
tool.
But if you're on IMDb, even if you have credits and you have no picture, that's one less step
Right.
that
One
you can
less
be discovered.
opportunity.
One less opportunity.
Hmm.
Um, and it is a kind of bummer that it is that expensive, that there's so many casting websites. There's so much,
Right.
monthly fee of like $200 if you're doing everything
Right. In
full out.
addition to your SAG dues, and if you're not working, that's hard to do
Mhm.
too. Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of, but if you're selling insurance, you have to
Stuff
get
you
your
oh, right. No,
certification,
no, I'm with
everything.
you.
There's, yeah, it's,
If you're a plumber, you need tools. You can't just go to somebody's house and ask for an Allen wrench.
and you need
Absolutely.
advertising, and you need,
Right.
pay, whether it used to be sending. I mean, the best advice I ever got was from a producer director named Mike Elliott. He met with me when I was doing shorts, and he's the one who said, you know, at that time, write a feature, get your feature. If you're going to be shooting all of these short, put them together into a feature, and then you can put it to distribution and all this stuff. But he said the thing that struck me was, he's like, the actors he likes the best, or people realize that it's like plumbing. If you're a plumber, you make the most amount of your money in your 50s, because you have to learn how to do it. You have to get your clientele. You have to get your return clientele, and then you make your money and you open your own shop.
Right.
But acting, filmmaking is the same thing. We just see people at their 20s that come and seemingly skyrocket out of nowhere.
Mhm.
Almost never did they actually skyrocket out of nowhere.
Right.
Almost never.
Mhm.
But we see it like that.
Mhm.
And so people quit,
Mm.
before they have developed any. And it's that process. You develop people, that you
Right.
work with on a regular basis, that on a regular basis, that follow. And in the meantime, you're putting out work,
Mhm.
and you're showing. If you're a plumber, you can't just make money. You have to actually be able to fix the toilet.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
once you fix the toilet for inexpensively and fast, then people hear about you, and then they
Right.
recommend you to you. It's the same thing.
Right.
But people don't see it the same way. They see it as like hitting the lottery. And I think
Mhm.
that's the saddest part. The
Mhm.
saddest thing ever is when you see people who don't have the money buying a lottery ticket because they think that's going to change their life. That's sad to me.
Right. Right.
They have a beer in one hand and they're buying scratch offs or a lottery ticket, and they think this is going to change my life,
Mhm. Rather than
rather than keeping that $10, $20, putting it into a stock market somewhere, and having it be $40 next week and $60 next week, and then buy, you
right.
know, 10 lottery tickets. You still have the same amount of chance. Does
Mhm.
that, I mean,
Oh,
by
no,
taking
that
the power.
right.
And I think filmmaking especially thinks you're going to hit the lottery. You're going to meet that caster in it. It's going to be your big break, or you're going to find you at, like a drugstore, and people take advantage of that.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Um, but I think it's more empowering, it's more fun, it's more inspiring to say, no, I'm going to work at this. I'm going to build
Mhm.
my, I'm going to
Right. I'm
make
gonna
sure I'm
put
a
the
great
time in.
actor. I'm going to put the
Right.
time in, because
Mhm.
then every project you do it's not going to be your big break. It's going to be your next thing that you did, your next step. You're
Mhm.
building your resume.
Right.
I mean, it's people get it. I don't
Well,
know.
one of the things that I love about you, especially today, is the things that you're doing on social media and giving tips and helping, and coaching. I know you're also a coach for actors,
Yeah.
to help them hone their craft. So, talk a little bit about, you know, what your, I don't know if it's methodology as much as what is your, um, path that you find the best way to, you know, be a better actor, be a
Mm.
better, performer.
Um, it's a good question. Yeah, and what happened, that just sort of found itself too. I ended up getting a job as a teacher at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and then there weren't enough, because I was the classes at that time for me to keep going. So I opened my own
Hmm.
studio with my girlfriend Jessica, and I've been doing that for about 3 or 4 years, because I actually, and it's been teaching me about acting by working with the people
Hmm.
also. So I love coaching and teaching almost as much as doing it, you know, but I think they're interrelated. Um, but as far as being a better actor, what I found is there's, just like we're talking, there's a lot of um, pressure, and even sometimes in just the 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 business of learning to act, on what other people are thinking. how am I going to get that casting director to put me in their project? It's subconscious. And it takes a lot of practice and a lot of time to realize that that takes you 100% away from where you need to be to actually get the job.
Mm.
You have to be living the actual experience of that character, especially on film, for that 5, 10, 15 minutes, whether it's a one line, co-star, you have to be living, having a relationship and thinking about what you would be thinking about if you were that person. And no one is a waiter thinking, I'm going to have this action of this objective to get this casting director to like me in their real life. And the camera sees that.
Mm-hmm.
And we keep pulled to be like pacing and these things. Whereas it's like, if you pay attention to what you would know, how do you feel about this person? Are they attractive, not attractive? All things that you would have in your brain in that moment, acting becomes easier. It becomes more alive. Learning lines becomes, I think, easier because you know what your answer would be. They just give you how to say it, and it. But there's so much pull to think about other things.
So do you work with a lot of your acting clients on self tapes now? I mean, what are they coming to you to get help for, in addition to maybe doing a play with you or whatever?
Yeah, well, right now it's interesting. It shifted during pandemic, but I actually was dubious at first because we did live, mostly live. It was all LA actors. We did scenes from plays. It was a little bit more of a hardcore scene study and things like that. And then when pandemic came, we moved it to Zoom, so it became very sort of audition based, film based. And I thought maybe Zoom, you're like, oh, maybe there's not going to be as much connection. And I found it's the opposite. I find like, because you can record the scenes that people are doing, that you can really see when people are drawn into other things or where they're not connected to what they're talking about, or all of these things that happen on a film are uber clear on Zoom. And what it also gave us the opportunity is half the class is from New York. We have some students in Texas. We have people, someone in Fargo, and so you start to see there are great and actors everywhere, and we can have a more, which I love. So then we just can work with people wherever they are. So I don't know if and when we're going to go back to like in-person classes, but I'm going to keep with the Zoom. So it become more film and TV centric, but I think the principles still work in theater. What you can't do in theater is like be in your body and walk around the stage. That I think is important still. But right now we're very film and film and TV centric. But the class is also about the craft of acting, planting the seeds. It's I try and work really hard at not being technical.
Right. I see a lot of, in my feed, of course, Facebook knows me so well, resources for actors and that type of thing, and different acting, methodologies and what have you. And I think if you're starting out, and a lot of the groups I'm in also, I see, parents wanting to know, how do they get their child into this? And I know some mommies that, stage mommy crazies.
Yeah.
But I think there's an important ingredient that you have to find with that acting coach, that chemistry. So because not everyone learns the same way. Some people have different, paths that they have to take to actually, grasp the concept, if you will, of different things that you're trying to teach. What are some of the things that you do to, in talking to a new student about what their goals are and how you can match up with them? Because, as you may or may not agree with this statement, not every acting coach is for every acting student. So you have to look for that the right connection. Am I is
Y-
that what you're seeing?
y-
Do you see
y-
that a lot?
Yeah, I haven't seen it very much recently because we're mostly in a master class, and um, I do I do agree that you have to take each student from where they are
Mhm.
in and try and give different. I don't think there's one technique that's better than the others necessarily. I'm Meisner based training, you know, from when I studied Meisner for 2 years and then another
Sure.
2 years, and I did Uta Hagen. I think they all have their place, and we're all trying to get to the same place from different prisms,
Mhm.
you know. Um, and I think sadly what that becomes is you don't mesh with everyone necessarily, but that comes after they come to class a couple times or after you see, and they,
Right.
like anything else, just um, don't come back or do come back, and that's
Well,
fine.
right.
That's okay. And yeah, because I think everybody has something to offer. I've never taken an acting class that didn't have something to offer.
Mhm.
Sometimes the language is different, and the more you develop your own sort of voice, um, the more a language of some other thing can get in the way.
Mhm.
That's why I try not to do that in this class, because people are coming with other training, and you and I'm finding stuff that even I was trained to do that we're finding works um, better to do the opposite.
Okay. Right.
Um, for an example, like in terms of script analysis, there's so many times that people are like, how am I going to say this line? They worry about their lines. What's
Mhm.
my objective? What's my thing? And I found that if you get people to do the script analysis on the other person's lines, meaning,
Mm.
what do I feel about what they're saying?
Right.
Who
That's a
are
good
they
point.
talking to me? If your wife or husband of 10 years is saying they're leaving, your objective and action becomes very clear.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's way easier to just know how you feel about that person than it is to, in the course of me talking to you, being like, I'm going to use this tactic and that tactic and this objective and try and
Right.
say it with a loud voice or a soft voice.
Right.
Then you're totally disconnected from the other person.
Mhm.
And a lot of times you act only on your lines. And if we've ever watched film, we know that most of the acting happens when it's not your line, and it's the moments that are created between the two people that
Mhm.
we love.
Mhm.
Um, Romeo and Juliet with Leo and Claire Danes.
Right.
It's Shakespeare. And to me, the most effective moment is with the fish tank, and it's
Mm.
unspoken, and it's
Mhm.
Shakespeare. They have plenty of great
Right.
lines
Right.
in that place
Right.
to tell this love story. But the love story, to me, when I watched it, that was so clear is when he sees her through the fish tank and there's no
Mhm.
lines.
Mhm.
But we think this is one of those things that we try and like just be like, because you have to remind, no, it's not about your lines. It's about how you feel about that person, how your opinion. And then you could do 18 takes, because every time your husband or wife says they're leaving, it will still hurt. It will always
Right.
hurt. You
Right.
can shake it off, come back 10 minutes later, they say it again. It'll hurt in a different way, maybe.
Mhm.
It'll bring out a different, maybe you'll get mad one time, maybe you get crying. So, but it always hurt.
Right. Right.
But if I'm trying to be like, I need to, it's even worse sometimes, at least for me, because you're like, I need to be great in this scene.
Mhm.
That's what we're thinking about. And then you're
Mhm.
stuck,
Right.
because
Right.
that's all
No.
I'm thinking about. I need to be great. Well, how are you going to be great? Well, you have no answer to that question.
As you say that, I mean, that is so clear to me. It has now I want to be an actor. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Good. Come on. Come on. Mondays and
Let me
Thursdays,
sign up.
five to eight.
But I think that a lot of people just think, oh, I'm going to come along with this monologue or a dialogue and, just put something out there and not really understand it's the it's the whole, not the part,
Right.
right?
Yeah. I mean, it's so amazing to me. It's like the counting lines, or that used to be, and there's always been that aspect to it. But it's like people, just because someone doesn't speak that much in the movie, but they're in the whole movie. You know, for example, you know, Margot Robbie in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, very
Mm-hmm.
famously didn't have
Right.
as many lines as everybody else.
Oh,
She was compelling.
Mhm.
Everything she did. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. That's my iTunes turns itself on. I don't know how to fix that.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think I think you hit your
Oh, I hit my
microphone or
button and
something,
my
and
iTunes
that
on
did
my
it.
thing turning on. Okay. Sorry about that.
No
It was a
problem.
little interlude of music.
Right.
But that's a perfect example of like, she's an incredibly compelling
Right.
character. She's an amazingly compelling actress. And it wasn't about her talking or not talking. It was
Mm-hmm.
about the moments that are
Right. Around it and the whole.
around it and
Right.
created and connection.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we think about ourselves, the less I can connect. The more I'm thinking about myself now, the less I can connect with you,
Mm-hmm.
and vice
Mm-hmm.
versa. And so we work on that kind of stuff in class because
Wow.
it takes a constant reminder, because the
Right.
pull of the industry, the pull of, you meet a casting director, and or even directors, they have a different language because they speak in the language of results,
Mm-hmm.
as they should.
Mm-hmm.
I want this, I want that. Okay, but actors need to speak the we need to practice how to translate that into what we can do, because you can't just give them sadness. You can't
Right.
just give them, you're like, okay, how do I get there? How do I get there? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
More, less, pacing, not pacing, bold choices. What is a bold choice? You know, what's a bold choice? I ask sometimes in new class, and I'm like, what's a choice? Everybody knows that you want to make a bold choice. Okay, what's a choice?
Mm-hmm.
You watch everybody go, including myself, be like,
Yeah.
I have no idea what that means. Bold choice. Does that mean a big choice? Loud? I'm gonna dance. I'm gonna do a jig and say it on my head. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
put clown makeup on. That's a bold choice. That's not gonna get me the job
Right.
on Grey's Anatomy. If I come
Right.
in with a clown nose on, this
Yeah, definitely not the right prep for that character.
it's confusing.
Right.
It's
Right.
confusing.
So let's just talk a little bit about what you're working on now.
Okay.
You know, in COVID times, I know we're limited on some things, but
Well, a couple of things. We right before COVID, about a year ago, December, we shot um, a pilot that is now shopping around, and we're hoping. So we got a 40. Again, it started as a short form. We were going to do 6 short form episodes, and this
mhm,
happens a lot. It happened to my movie twice. Um, but then when you have the whole piece, you're like, oh, this works as a 45-minute pilot or 2 half-an-hour pilots.
right,
You know,
right.
if you stretch, you get the beginning and middle and end in different places. So
Hmm.
that's called stripped. So there's only a trailer out, but we're waiting to find a home for it. So right now it's in that process. So I produced
Okay.
in that, Casper Van Dien and Brooke Lewis, and my friend Mark Klebanoff produced it. So that's more in the post production, trying to find distribution
Okay.
venue, and I can't really, you know, talk
Get into
where it
too much.
is
No,
or
that's
like,
fine.
because
Yeah.
it's like, and that's a whole different process. And my buddy Mark, who wrote it and directed it, is also, he does distribution through his company because he was a filmmaker and was tired of getting ripped off by distribution people, and taught himself how to do
Oh,
so now he has an actual international distribution company on his own that he distributes not only his films but other people's films, and
okay.
he does it from the filmmaker's perspective.
Oh, great.
So he's kind of taking it out,
Hmm.
and that's um, where it is. And then through the Annex, the acting studio, a lot of people wanted to produce their own content and were asking questions in the acting class. So we decided. So I said, well, why don't we just meet on Wednesday
Hmm.
to answer all production questions?
Right.
And then a lot of people showed up on Wednesdays, and we decided to meet every week. And there were a lot of writers, Jessica, my girlfriend included, who is a brilliant writer on top of being a great actress. But like, there were a lot of scenes, and we ended up putting together a pilot script, um, from these scenes that people wrote sort of separately, and then we put it together like a writer's room and
Okay.
made like a sort of Love Actually kind of relationship
Oh,
thing where people are
right.
connected, but they
Right.
all have their own voice.
Mhm.
And it sort of worked out great. So now we're in the process of, because the team is half in New York and half in, we're finding ways to try and get together. And
Okay.
it's not a COVID type thing where we can shoot over Zoom. So
Right.
we're putting together as safe as we can shoot weekends now that, the
Mhm.
best that we can and get. And that could also be sold just as bud. The script is tight and we can put that together. But in the meantime, we also want to shoot it because then
Mhm.
we can practice the acting,
Right.
learn directing, do all of these things, which is how I used to do the film group. Not I used to do how the film group used to work. I was just a member of it.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's super exciting because it's very relaxed, and you start to see how art can like grow.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Oh,
And
yeah.
yes, and you know what? For not for nothing, I have a lot of people projects. It's like when I read the script, I'm like, the script is tight. This script should sell. This script could be
Mhm.
on one of these networks or one of these streaming places. It's relationship stuff.
Right.
Talks about it talks about difference between Instagram and in real life.
Mm.
So there's all these pictures that people have, and then what their
Right.
real life is underneath it, and how messy
Right.
that would be.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I
Um,
have to say I know a lot of people, want to be that Insta famous or that perfect, person, and I have seen some of that fall apart, as many of us have, when that person cracks because I can't keep that persona up because it's not their real life.
Yeah, like I said, if that's your lighthouse and you're great at it, but I think sometimes, we've always found that they talked about it a lot back in our days in the first web series and when YouTube was starting.
Right.
Authenticity, authenticity, authenticity. If you had
Mhm.
too much production value, people didn't like it. It's changed since then, but because
Right.
you needed to be authentic
Right.
and you can't fake authenticity. That's the whole point. So you can't, you know,
Mhm.
and I think sometimes chasing that, there are ways to get it, but if you're chasing like Charlie D'Amelio TikTok, if you're chasing what she does, what she did just happened.
Right.
And now it grows and grows and grows.
Mhm.
But if you try and fake it, you're
Yeah.
never not going to be her. I just think down there lies doom. If you're trying fame just for fame's sake, Neil Patrick Harris, I heard him once say, he's like, first you couldn't get into the Emmys, and then you could get into the Emmys, but you couldn't get into the after party. Then you could get into the after party, you couldn't get into Madonna's after party. Then you could get into Madonna's after party, but not Elton John's after party.
Right.
He's like, there's always another door that you can't get in,
Mhm.
even if your trajectory is just like this.
Right.
Forget the pitfalls of like, oh, you're not, do you? You have to go.
Right.
And I just thought that's very interesting that somebody who is, from our perspective, amazingly famous,
Right.
has the perspective to say, "Yeah, there's always another door. So
Mhm.
there lies madness to chase
Right.
that door. It's about what do you want to do? What do you want to say?
Right. Be authentic
Be
and let it
authentic.
happen and not try to force that, and then you'll be abundantly rewarded. I think
Well,
that's
and your life will be more joyous.
right.
You'll be
It's
doing stuff that you want to do for your. And yeah, it's not always easy. It's hard. Production is hard. There are things that
mhm.
come up. People fight. It's not all
Right.
like roses in that direction.
Right.
But you'll you'll be more inspired because I've found, yeah, you go through waves where you're just not like, what am I doing this for?
Mhm.
I've been hustling for 25 years. I don't want to like hustle to like, that's not what it's about.
Mhm.
It can't, that's not as sustainable as like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this. And if I have to get another job or general insurance that is flexible to do that, then
Right.
so be it.
Right.
That's the money. And this is the thing until it works itself
Mhm.
out.
Right.
Um, and that doesn't mean you can't, like I said, be smart about the money aspect of it or the business aspect of it. You can say, this is why it works. These are the networks. Speaking from what you're talking about, what got me in the room in a production way is not, and I learned this because back then I would go into MIP in Cannes, and I had, inheritance, so I could go to these different places that not a lot of people can do, but you can go to film festivals, you can go to things like that. Not so much right now because they're all closed, but when it comes back around, I would come with my business card, and you would go up and talk to the person who produces, the head of Lionsgate Digital, or the head of wherever, Digital Hollywood. There were tons of these.
Right.
How we would meet these networking centric events for people that were executives, not for actors. We would go to different events, NAPTI, things like that. But what I always found is the times where, if I was doing, my show Darkness, which is very drama action thing, and I would try and talk to the producer of The Office, there's nothing for me to say to them, even though it's fun to meet the producer of The Office. But whereas if I knew that it adds value to their network, or they could be looking for something, or they say something, I say, oh yeah, they're looking for a show like this. There are plenty of people that, like when Quibi was coming around, they were looking for short form content. If you had short form content, not that that's the best example because
because they're gone now,
because they're gone. But whether it's Crackle or somebody, people are looking for different things, and you hear what they're looking for, and then you find the ones that are looking for what you have to offer.
Exactly.
You don't want to try and sell a table to somebody who's looking for a chair. It won't make any sense. So find the people who are looking for a table and make the best damn table that you can make, and then say, here's my table. And they'll either buy it or they won't. And then somebody will buy your table.
Especially if it's good.
If you make it solid. If you make it from the right place. If you put heart into it. Whether it's, I watched Chef just the other day. I'm late to the table, but I watched a movie, Chef.
That
so
was a great
inspiring.
Movie. Yes.
I mean, it's Jon Favreau. It's not in his wheelhouse what we think of him as doing. But the movie is amazing. And
well, now he has a Netflix series too of cooking.
Phenomenal. Yeah. But it's all about heart. And you listen to Roy Choi talk about at the very end, talking about cooking that one sandwich.
That grilled cheese. Exactly.
It's like
simple thing.
If this goes wrong, everything sucks. And I don't know. I've never met him, but if you ask Roy Choi, like if he planned out to be how he got to where he got to by doing the food truck tour, he would say, no, I didn't, when I was 19, say to myself, you know what I want to do in 20 years, start a fleet of food trucks with the best. No, he just wanted to be the best at what he did, and he kept going and then looking to where it was.
And it grew organically.
It grew organically and found the organic thing. And we always try and push into the round hole. We think, oh, it's going to be this way. If I send this many things, this many cast directors, that's how I'm going to get it. Somehow I'm just going to get in front of Sarah Finn and be on the next Avengers. Great. If that happens, great. Do you know what I'm saying? You should want to meet Sarah. I want to meet Sarah. Everybody wants to meet, because she's a genius. Everybody wants to meet Jon Favreau. He's a genius as well. Of course, work with those people.
But you have to
meantime, have something to offer. If I'm at Jon, I'm going to have something to offer. Be like, oh yeah, this, and not just I like your stuff. It's like, yeah, what I'm saying is going. Then those meetings are easier to take. If you're trying to sell something, not even sell, but if you're trying to offer something that adds value to what people are looking for, it's a way easier meeting to take than if you're trying to get $1 million for a project that they have no business want, that would never be on their network, that would never have any business plan, that would never. And I know some of that sounds like it sucks to try and do that work of that research, but if you really care about the project you're doing, if you really care, whether it's a documentary or narrative film or acting or whatever, it's not painful to figure out what other documentary. It's not painful to watch the documentaries that are going around, to find the people, to talk to the people who are interested in the material that you're talking to. That's never been painful for me. What's painful for me is trying to get this person who is interested in basket weaving to be interested in my homeless project that they have no interest in.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with you. You have to do that research. You have to understand what your genre is, who's interested in that. You also, in addition to that, I think getting that audience and having people that you're connected with in a community that can help elevate and spread the love about your project. So if
Yeah.
if you're not doing any of this, if you're just so focused on, I want to make it, I want $1 million to make this, and you're not doing all the other things that you should do, you're just putting it out there. I want $1 million. I wrote, a script or whatever it is, and I want to get in a room with somebody, and you have nothing else to offer, then it's,
My
it's
question would be, why do you want the $1 million?
fool's fault,
Well,
fool's
I mean,
errand. Yeah.
because that's the other thing we talk about in class all the time. It's whenever I write a book, if I ever write a book, it's going to be called like why, because that question is so underused, except by like 2-year-olds who like, why is the sky blue? Why? And you realize that every time you ask why, the answer gets deeper. So if you want $1 million, why?
Right.
Well, I want to make a movie. Well, why do you want to make the movie? Oh, because I want to be famous. Okay, well now we know.
Next.
Right.
Right.
I want to make the movie because I need to like raise awareness about autism. If that's your why, and why do you want to do that? Well, because I have a cousin that has autism, and people don't understand the truth about it. And even if that's just a piece of it, like a piece of Parenthood, the show Parenthood, which is an amazing show on top of it, but part of that character came from the fact that there was family-based thing. If that is almost always it's always inspiring. Even for people who don't necessarily know or have any connection to autism, if you have the connection and you can get, and that's part of your heart and drive, and that's why you're getting the $1 million. So to raise awareness, to raise more money for them, to have all of these things. If you're just raising $1 million so you can buy a bigger car, okay, good luck.
Right.
You'll get people. Like, it's a good investment. I'll make $1 million. You'll make $1 million. We put it in you. That's a different ball game. This number is this. We're going to get this many sales. This is the place. It's undervalued. We buy it now. Then you're talking about stock market. Might as well just go in the stock market.
Right. Well, that's such great insight, Frank. Thank you so much. So is there any outside of Stripped, right? Can I find that trailer on YouTube or
I don't know. We only
Vimeo?
released it for a little bit.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
not yet, but keep it.
I'll follow up with you.
My social media. Yeah, when the time comes. Yeah, I'm excited about it. It should be. The trailer's funny. With Casper Van Dien's in it, and so he's just.
I have a crush on him, but don't.
Oh, he's the best guy in the world. So there's that, and then the rest. Yeah, and the rest of production wise is coming through the class, and that's, we're not there yet for anything to share, but hopefully soon.
Well, I definitely will follow and be sure to share that whenever it's available, and
appreciate it.
Stay in touch. I also will get your information, so if people are interested in learning more about the Annex Acting School,
it's the annexactingstudio.com.
Studio,
so it's easy.
right.
The annexactingstudio.com.
We'll have that
also
included.
I'm going to put a pitch for a friend of mine, because talk about, and that's weaudition.com, Darren Dunborough, because what that does is actors can, like, I go on and do a lot of coaching there when I can, where, for $5, $10, or people do it for tips. People who need readers and need self-tapes and don't have someone in the room can just go on, grab a reader, and then I read with them, and I make $20, and they I coach whatever level of coaching they want. Sometimes I'm working with people who are way, have 179 credits and are doing, working on big projects. It's a great way to connect with other actors. It keeps me acting all the time as a reader, which is always easier, I feel, because your pressure's not on you. Once the camera goes on, the lights come on, the pressure goes. So,
Okay.
and he started that. I remember when he started, and he started talk about these startups. His lighthouse was trying to provide things that actors needed.
That's
It
awesome.
wasn't
Yeah.
about just making money or any of that stuff,
Right.
and so I think it's a good thing for actors to check out if you haven't. It's a
Oh, yeah.
great community. They do casting director talks, Instagram lives. He's very, very good, big on social media.
Okay. And
And
it's weaudition.com. Okay.
weaudition.com.
Okay.
And Darren Darnborough is the founder. And we audition, on Instagram and Facebook and all of those things are good pages to watch because they
Okay.
give a lot of tips for
Good.
actors. And yeah, so I'm gonna just put a shout out to him because he's doing great stuff as
We
well.
appreciate that.
Yeah, and yeah, that's about it. It's
Okay.
like that. Yeah, it's exciting.
Awesome.
I mean, it's exciting as far as like casting and stuff. We'll wait until hopefully that comes back. But I'm happy, working with other people. It's out there. There are a
Right.
lot of people who are auditioning. So
So you just have to hustle, do your work, research, do your work, and
and be ready. You do
be
casting
ready.
director work. That's another thing. If you're gonna do casting director workshop, be ready. You have to,
Right.
and that just means be the best actor you can be at this time. The
Right.
actor you're gonna be in 10 years, not the actor you're gonna be now. That's okay.
Yeah.
But go in there. Um, to act, not to impress anybody. If you go to impress anybody, I don't feel like it ever works. It's never been helpful for me. It's just
Well,
made me nervous and
yeah.
scared and shut down.
Those are all good tips.
Yeah.
And you have inspired me to want to act, but no, that's
Yes.
all
Welcome. You're
right.
always welcome. Even
No.
just for fun, if you want to see how it works.
Well, it's funny because my
Totally
son,
invited.
yeah, he's been acting. He was is a graduate of the London Academy of Dramatic
Mhm.
Music and Dramatic Arts, but he's here in New Mexico. He's got an agent. He's going to be going from behind the camera to in front of it again.
Great.
So he'll be needing some people to connect with, and we'll
Yeah,
get you.
I mean, it's a great group what we have right now. We have foundation classes,
Mhm.
and we have master class and the master class. The master class we keep. We started it this way even before COVID, but we're going to keep it forever. As it's pay what you can,
Uh-huh.
because I feel like actors have to pay so much money to stay in class sometimes. So for not all of our classes are pay what you can, but that class stays pay what you can,
That's nice.
so that
That's a
people
good.
can continue training without
Mhm.
breaking the bank. And
Right.
again, it becomes about something else. It
Right.
becomes about
That's
everybody continuing instead of like, oh, we're going to make $1 million.
right. Well, and you never know, because one of your alumni from your class may end up in something that they pull you guys in
They're getting
because
close.
that network, right? Because you've built those relationships and have that trust
Well,
with.
and the pilot that we're working on together in the production part of the group is
Uh-huh.
actually really solid. I'm really proud of it. Like the and I did get to act in that one too, so that was even more fun. Um, but it's yeah, I think it might be, not might be. I think it will be really great when it comes out. So
Well,
we'll
I
see.
have no doubt.
All right.
I have seen your work and I approve.
Well,
So,
thank you so much. It's so great to talk to you. I really appreciate that. And what you're doing here too, helping people just with information, I think is a massive service that you
thank you.
provide.
Well, we're
Um,
we're all a community trying to build, and keep everyone, connected, especially after going through this pandemic. What are the things that we can do to, support each other and, as you say, build that community, get that experience and not be afraid. You have to, if this is something you're passionate about, you need to take the steps to make it yours and own it, and
right.
no matter what, right? So
100%.
yeah. All right, Frank. Thank
Thanks.
you.
We're done already. It was went
I
so fast
know.
talking to you in overtime. I could talk to you all day. I could talk shop all day, but thank you so
So
much.
can we. All
Yeah,
right.
so it's great to see you. Stay in touch.
I will.
Do it
Okay.
more often. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Frank. Take care. Bye-bye.